What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome to Not Your Status Quo. Today, we are going to discuss what's next for Loki on Disney+.
Hello. Which one of us are you?
And once again, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Sprite, for not only giving us these Sprites to drink and quench our thirst during this video, but for also letting us film during the Sprite Lyman Festival.
Bro, man, say it. No.
Thank you, Sprite. You rock.
So what's next for Loki? We know at the end of episode 5, we know a few things. They are through Alioth. They are going to this castle, wherever it is, on that fish-looking rock. But who is going to be in that castle? Who was Alioth a guard dog for? I think there's two prevailing theories. One of them being King Loki, one of them being Kang.
And Mephisto.
It's always Mephisto.
Always Mephisto.
Nightmare's there too.
And Nightmare.
We are going to be right. Go back and watch our WandaVision. What's next?
See how right we were about all that?
So I want to look at this, each candidate, one at a time. Because there's a few things that make me think it's them, and then there's a few things that make me think it's not them.
I have a feeling that I'm going to be in agreement with you with most of them, too.
Oh, good. That's because
He's a
you're
yes
very
man.
smart. You're a very smart man.
He's a yes
Excellent
man.
judge of character.
No, because there are... I have a feeling my thought process is the same as you, but go ahead.
Okay,
we'll
so
see.
Let's start with King Loki.
All right.
So this show has been all about variants of Loki.
Mm-hmm.
So having the big bad be another variant of Loki kind of fits where this is going. And, there's been so much, we know that Loki is the main variant that they prune, so it could be this King Loki at the end of time wanting to get rid of rivals and all of that good stuff. But the one reason I think it is not, Loki likes to cause chaos. The person who is actually doing this in that castle at the end of time is trying to stop chaos as much as they can. So maybe if it is King Loki, he's done with the chaos, and he knows that by limiting it, or by limiting Loki's causing chaos, it'll give him more power and let him do more things. It could be. But the whole fact that this seems to be anti-Loki makes me feel like it's not King Loki. But the fact that the show's all about variants makes me think it very possibly could be.
I knew that I would end up agreeing with you on that part. I also think that it's possible that it could be King Loki. And we're going to be putting out an in-focus video on Kang the Conqueror, which you should keep your eyes peeled, and make sure you check it out when it comes out. But as we're going to mention about that, this is a little bit of a preview for you guys. One of the versions of Kang is the type who he gets tired of conquering, and he kind of wants to sort of prevent other Kangs from conquering. He does a couple of things in order to stop being so bad. So it's very possible that this MCU version of King Loki is very similar in that regard, where he does not want to cause chaos anymore. Maybe he is trying to control things.
See, now I think that's just in his nature. He's the god of mischief, and so that's kind of why I don't agree, is because, just going through Prune Land with the other Lokis, they all...
I love that Prune Land, by the way.
They're all different, but they all have the same basic qualities. And one is they always betray.
My army, my throne.
About that.
Yeah, they do.
And they like to be the center of attention.
Loki, he's a full-tilt diva. He wants flowers, he wants parades, he wants a monument built in the sky.
So a Loki sitting back at the end of time.
What's more center of attention than having a giant castle at the end of time?
Did anybody know it was there? Nobody knew it was there.
How hard is it to get to him?
Right, that's the reason I think that it might not be that.
Well, the only other reason why I think that it's possible that it's King Loki is, again, we kind of reference this with our whole joke about, the whole Mephisto thing, is they have been very, almost too clear that Kang is probably the big bad at the end of everything in the castle, at the end of time. It would stand to reason, because that's very much how it is in the comics. They have pointed to many little Easter eggs that reference Kang. You see in Prune Land his Sphinx time machine. The one timekeeper head looks identical to Kang, or at least pretty close to Kang, in my opinion. And there have been a lot of other references, like Ravonna, to Kang. So to me, it was almost like they like pulling these little switcheroos in the MCU. So I thought, okay, are they doing this where they're making you think it's Kang, where they made us thought it was Mephisto in WandaVision? Are they making us think it's Kang and it's going to be somebody else?
Well, let's talk Kang now.
Okay.
So, the reasons it could be Kang.
Mm-hmm.
Like Doug said, there have been tons of Kang Easter eggs. Not only did we see the Sphinx, but there's also Quang Tower. That was one of his aliases. And if you want to know more about Kang, we're going to have that Kang in Focus coming out. And, you know, Ravonna Renslayer, kind of his companion in the comics. You know, he's really in love with her. This could be a variant of the one that he fell in love with in another time frame. And I think the biggest thing that makes me think this is Kang, and this is completely out of the show, Jonathan Majors was cast as Kang 10 months prior to Ant-Man and the Wasp beginning filming. We've never heard anything like that before. And what was filming right at the time when he was cast?
Loki.
Exactly. So, with all of the references to him, Alioth has connections to Kang. Ravonna Renslayer has connections to Kang. We saw the Sphinx, which is what he uses as a time traveling device when he went to ancient Egypt to become Roma Tut. So there's so many things pointing to Kang. And unlike the Mephisto rumors where they would kind of mention it, we know who's playing him in the MCU. Mm-hmm. So it is very likely that if he is not the big bad, he will at least, after this is over, he could be in a post-credit scene. Mm-hmm. And I think we theorized on this before. Hey, King Loki is gone. There is now this power vacuum, which they mentioned, because all they wanted to do was take the TVA down. They didn't want to run it. There's a power vacuum, and that's where Kang steps in.
So are we going to have an end credit scene where Kang comes on and puts on his time-traveling glove and he says,
"Fine. I'll do it myself."
Probably, yes. I figured he'd put on his purple mask.
There you go.
I could see him showing up in an end credit scene if he doesn't turn out to be the big bad. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But in a lot of the sense when I said, you know, hey, Loki doesn't necessarily fit this because he's trying to put order, and he's the god of mischief and chaos. But Kang is a conqueror. Mm-hmm. And this is not him getting his hands dirty. This is him just sitting back. So, could it be an alter ego of Kang, Immortus?
It could very well be.
Because what we know about Immortus is he's Kang. I know this might be getting confusing, but he is
a Kang.
Yeah, he is a Kang, and he basically got sick. He was done trying to conquer. He was done to do all this. So he actually made a deal with the Timekeepers to rule a certain part of time and keep it in order. Because in the comics, the Timekeepers want the timelines to go a certain way, so they end up fully powered at the end of the universe. And what does that sound like? It sounds like the exact plot of Loki. They're pruning timelines that go away from the sacred timeline. So it could even be, third option, this other version of Kang, Immortus.
I take your theory of Immortus, and I raise you that I don't think the Timekeepers even exist.
And that's very likely. Especially, they could exist, and Immortus or Kang is just using the robots to try to keep people in line because the Timekeeper sounds a little more official, they sound more powerful. So they still could exist, and he's just doing a Trevor Slattery.
Yeah, they could pull a Mandarin on the whole Timekeeper thing.
They could.
And the real Timekeepers are going to show up at the end and be like, Immortus, you failed us. And destroy him, and that's when Kang comes in or something.
Fine, I'll do it myself. Another fun thing about Pruneland was all of the fun little references. So we mentioned a whole bunch of these Kang Easter eggs, but there was a bunch of other fun sort of comic booky Easter eggs that people who, you know, with keen eyes probably noticed as they were traveling all through Pruneland.
How about the Thanos helicopter from the Spider-Man comics?
Now, is this going to... Canon. Now, is this going to be the Thanos that we brought up in other previous What's Next videos? This is our eco-friendly hugging Thanos.
Man, everybody just relax.
Hey, that thing used gas. Eco-friendly Thanos would not use a gas-powered helicopter.
It was an electric helicopter.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it has a really long cord.
Right.
And we also saw the Red Skull rocket from Captain America: First Adventure.
Yes, that was pretty cool. Oh, and not so fun fact, that was actually based off of real Nazi tech.
No, you're right. That's not fun.
No. So a couple of other little things that we noticed. We pointed out, actually, we weren't sure if this was actually going to happen, but in one of our previous What's Next videos, when we were talking about the idea of, you know, the Gator Loki, we thought that it was going to show us Frog Thor. And sure enough, we actually do get to see that. He's unfortunately buried in the ground in a jar.
A quick little note to add to that. Director Kate Herron has said Chris Hemsworth did the voice for Throg.
That is so perfect. Oh, that is beautiful. That's great.
I like how he's in his little jar and he's still trying to get Mjolnir.
Yes, that was really funny. And then we also saw down in the, what is that, a bowling alley that they were kind of hiding out in, all the
Pretty
Lokis?
much, yeah,
Yeah.
Sea-ball or something.
So I love how they're all drinking, and they also show the boxed wine that they're all drinking out of, which came from, I want to say the Roxas Mart or what?
Yeah, Rox Cart.
Yeah, the Rox Cart store. The Roxas boxed wine. But Kid Loki, of course, has to drink juice because he's a kid. And what juice do they show him holding? Of course, the only juice that you would find in Pruneland, the famed Ecto Cooler that was for the Ghostbusters. And, you know, all ghost heads are constantly searching for when Heisey is going to re-release it. It turns out the Timekeepers just pruned it from the timeline.
Those bastards. Now, not only do we see that, we also saw a Kree warship like the Dark Aster.
Right.
Yes.
We did see a helicarrier.
Keith, did you notice what was on that helicarrier?
No, I didn't.
It was the Hydra logo. So, was there a timeline where Hydra did go unnoticed and they did take over and had to be pruned?
So you're saying Steve Rogers didn't stop the Winter Soldier and didn't knock down those 3 helicarriers at the end of Winter Soldier, and they actually took over?
Could be.
And then they got pruned for doing it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Steve didn't know. He's just running all over the timeline.
And then finally, there was one last Easter egg, which brings us to another What's Next. Yellow Jacket's helmet was also there. And what did we just find out about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania?
He's signed up to be in the movie.
Darren Cross, Yellow Jacket, is coming back. So I thought that timing was perfect. So that's what we think is happening next in Loki. But what do you guys think? Add us at Twitter, leave it in the comments below, and we will see you next time at Not Your Status Quo.